14 facts we only discovered after these legendary black actors passed on. What if the most iconic smiles in television and film history were actually flawless masks, hiding unimaginable devastating pain? We applauded their brilliant performances, bought the box office tickets, and streamed their classic hits. But we never once asked what it cost them to show up. From enduring grueling chemotherapy sessions, between blockbuster takes, to beautiful 30-year romances, violently forced into the dark, these legends carried secrets so heavy they would have crushed an ordinary person. They sacrificed their wealth, their health, and sometimes their very identities just to entertain a world that refused to truly see them. Are you ready to uncover the tragic reality behind the glamour? Subscribe to Black Hollywood Uncut, hit the notification bell, and join us as we expose the heartbreaking secrets of the stars you thought you knew. Whitney Houston died, age 48 in 2012. When Whitney Houston tragically passed away in 2012, at the age of 48, the media aggressively zoomed in on her personal demons, framing her final years as a standard Hollywood narrative of addiction and lost glory. But the story the public consumed completely missed the quiet, crushing reality she had been carrying behind closed doors for decades. Behind the platinum records, the sold-out global arenas, and a voice so divine it felt otherworldly, Whitney was secretly drowning under the unimaginable weight of her own boundless generosity. At the absolute zenith of her career, she was the highest-paid black female entertainer on the planet. Her 1985 debut album shattered global records, and the Bodyguard soundtrack moved tens of millions of copies, cementing her status as an untouchable icon. Yet what the world didn't see was the devastating financial and emotional toll of that very success. Whitney was constitutionally incapable of saying no to the people she loved. As her fame exploded, she quietly morphed into a private welfare system for an ever-expanding network of family members, friends, and associates. She wasn't just living lavishly. She was covering overdue mortgages, paying off massive medical bills, and funding private school tuitions for an entourage that had grown far too comfortable living off her extraordinary gift. Those closest to her, including her mother, Cissy Houston, and her cousin Dionne Warwick, later revealed a heartbreaking dynamic. Whitney suffered from a profound, agonizing guilt over her unparalleled success. This guilt drove her to give endlessly, treating her wealth not as a personal reward, but as a communal resource to be aggressively extracted by everyone around her. Midnight phone calls begging for financial bailouts were a routine reality. She poured her heart, her energy, and her massive fortune into keeping everyone else afloat, often enabling the very people who should have been her fiercest protectors. The true tragedy of Whitney Houston is not merely that she succumbed to the intense pressures of the spotlight, but that her immense heart became her ultimate undoing. By the time her remarkable life came to an end in that Beverly Hills hotel room, her vast fortune was largely depleted, drained not just by her own struggles, but by a lifetime of funding an ecosystem that refused to let her rest. We lost the voice, not just to the shadows of the industry, but because she gave herself away, piece by piece, until there was simply nothing left to give. Chadwick Boseman, age 43 in 2020. When Chadwick Boseman passed away on August 28, 2020, at the age of 43, the collective shock that rippled across the globe was deafening. The world hadn't just lost a brilliant generational talent. It had lost a man who was quietly carrying an unbearable burden in plain sight. In 2016, at the exact moment he was introduced to audiences worldwide as T'Challa in Captain America: Civil War, Boseman was privately receiving a devastating diagnosis, stage 3 colon cancer. What unfolded over the next 4 years is a feat of human endurance and quiet dignity that still defies comprehension. Between brutal, exhausting rounds of chemotherapy and countless secretive surgeries, he didn't just survive, he anchored a cultural revolution. Flashing that trademark regal smile, he led Black Panther to historic heights, helping the film gross over $1.3 billion and secure a groundbreaking Best Picture nomination, all while his own body waged a silent, agonizing war against him. He then pushed his physical limits through the grueling back-to-back shoots of Avengers: Infinity War and Endgame. None of his co-stars, directors, or the millions of fans who idolized him knew the terrifying reality of his daily existence. Even more heartbreaking was his off-screen devotion. During his darkest and most painful days, Boseman would quietly visit children battling cancer in pediatric wards. He sat by their bedsides, offering them the strength of a superhero, never once revealing that he was fighting the exact same monster. His final breathtaking performance in Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, filmed when the disease had aggressively progressed to stage 4, is a masterclass of raw, visceral urgency. Watching it now, you can see a man pouring the very last drops of his soul onto the screen, a performance that rightfully earned him a posthumous Academy Award nomination. His wife Simone later shared that the work was what kept him stepping forward, providing vital purpose through the blinding pain. Chadwick Boseman didn't just wear a vibranium suit and play a king for the Hollywood cameras. He embodied the very definition of a real-life superhero, showing us all what grace, resilience, and ultimate sacrifice truly look like. We just didn't know it until the final credits rolled. Cicely Tyson, die Age 96 in 2021. In an entertainment industry that historically demanded black actresses be eternally grateful for the meager crumbs of stereotypical roles, Cicely Tyson did something utterly revolutionary. She simply said no. When she passed away peacefully in 2021 at the impressive age of 96, she left behind a brilliant blueprint of uncompromising integrity that spanned 7 full decades. Born into poverty in East Harlem to strict Caribbean immigrant parents, her mother was a deeply religious woman who didn't even allow movies in their home. Tyson defied the odds to become a titan of the stage and screen. Yet her true legacy was forged not just by the iconic roles she accepted, but by the lucrative paychecks she deliberately walked away from. Tyson fiercely refused to participate in the 1970s wave of blaxploitation films, publicly calling them out as harmful caricatures that set her community back. She decided early on that she would rather face financial instability and go without work than allow her face to be used to demean black womanhood. Her fierce selectivity meant she sometimes went years without a major project. But when she did step in front of the camera, the earth shook. Her breakout in the 1972 cinematic masterpiece Sounder earned her a historic Academy Award nomination and her monumental shape-shifting transformation in the autobiography of Miss Jane Pittman, where she aged seamlessly from a young enslaved woman to a 110-year-old civil rights hero, won her 2 Emmy Awards in a single night. Tyson viewed acting as a sacred responsibility, a vital tool to elevate the human spirit rather than cheapen it for easy entertainment. She spent her entire life proving that dignity is never for sale. Her stamina was just as legendary as her formidable talent. At 88, she became the oldest person ever to win a Tony Award, and at 93, Hollywood finally bowed to her greatness with an honorary Oscar. Poetically, just 2 days after releasing her triumphant best-selling memoir, Just As I Am, she took her final bow. Cicely Tyson didn't just navigate a rigged Hollywood machine. She fundamentally forced it to respect her, ensuring that every black actress who walked through the doors after her could do so wearing a crown. Eartha Kitt, die Age 81 in 2008. Eartha Kitt was a mesmerizing force of nature, a performer whose signature purr and magnetic stage presence made her an international icon. But beneath the glamorous persona lay a woman of fierce, uncompromising conviction, a truth-teller who paid an unimaginable price for daring to speak her mind. In 1968, at the height of her fame, Kitt was invited to a White House luncheon hosted by First Lady Lady Bird Johnson to discuss the growing issue of youth crime. When asked for her perspective, Kitt didn't offer polite, sanitized platitudes. Instead, she looked directly at the First Lady and delivered a blistering, honest indictment of the Vietnam War. "You send the best of this country off to be shot and maimed. she stated, arguing that America's youth were rebelling because they were being drafted into a senseless conflict only to be sent home in body bags. Lady Bird Johnson reportedly burst into tears, and the room descended into stunned silence. The retaliation was swift, calculated, and utterly devastating. By the next morning, Kit's career in the United States was effectively annihilated. She was systematically blacklisted from television, film, and major nightclub circuits. But the punishment went much deeper than canceled contracts. Decades later, investigative reports revealed that the CIA, acting under the direction of the Johnson administration, had compiled an extensive fabricated dossier designed to assassinate her character and destroy her livelihood. For nearly 10 years, one of the most brilliant and distinctive entertainers in American history was forced into exile, building a career in Europe and Asia, simply to survive in her chosen profession. Yet the establishment could not permanently silence a voice that powerful. Her triumphant return to the American stage in the 1978 Broadway production Timbuktu earned her a Tony nomination, and a completely new generation fell in love with her as the hilarious voice of Yzma in Disney's The Emperor's New Groove, netting her 2 daytime Emmys. When Eartha Kitt passed away on Christmas Day in 2008 at the age of 81, she had miraculously outlasted every political effort to ruin her. She never recanted, never groveled, and never apologized for telling the truth. Her legacy is a breathtaking testament to the courage it takes to stand your ground when the most powerful government in the world tries to erase you. Bernie Mac, died age 50 in 2008. Bernie Mac built his legendary comedy empire on a foundation of raw, dangerous, and unapologetic honesty. When he walked onto a stage, his booming voice, lethal timing, and larger-than-life presence commanded the room. Within seconds, he could make a crowd of strangers feel as though he had just read their most private thoughts, offering a massive room-filling laugh that felt like a collective exhale for the culture. He famously declared, "I ain't scared of you," an ethos that defined his fearless, boundary-pushing routines on the original Kings of Comedy tour, and his groundbreaking semi-autobiographical network hit The Bernie Mac Show. But the man who supposedly put all his cards on the table was hiding a devastating physical reality that makes his monumental success almost impossible to fathom. For years, Mac was quietly battling sarcoidosis, a chronic and unpredictable inflammatory disease that systematically attacked his lungs. While audiences saw a whirlwind of kinetic energy and hilariously exaggerated facial expressions, the truth was that breathing itself had become a grueling daily struggle. His wife Rhonda later revealed that there were mornings when the pain and fatigue were so overwhelming he could barely pull himself out of bed. On days when most people would have surrendered to the illness, Bernie dragged himself to the set or the stage. The moment the director called action, or the spotlight hit his face, he transformed, giving a performance so explosively vibrant that absolutely no one watching could have guessed his body was failing him. He made the agonizing look completely effortless. When Bernie Mac passed away on August 9, 2008, at just 50 years old from pneumonia, a condition severely complicated by his long secret war with sarcoidosis, the entertainment industry was completely blindsided. He had hidden his suffering with surgical precision, refusing to let his illness become his narrative. The tragedy of his early death is magnified by the sheer willpower it took for him to keep us smiling, while he was privately gasping for air. The man who made the whole world laugh fiercely refused to ask a single person to cry for him. That was pure, unadulterated Bernie Mac, right to his final breath, a king of comedy who protected the joy of his audience, even when it cost him everything. Michael Clark, Duncan, died 54 in 2012. Standing at a massive 6 feet 5 inches and weighing over 300 pounds, Michael Clark Duncan possessed a physical presence that could silence a room the second he walked through the door. Hollywood looked at his towering brick wall physique and immediately typecast him as the ultimate intimidator, the terrifying bouncer, the heavy muscle, the unstoppable enforcer. But the heartbreaking reality, fully revealed only after his sudden passing in 2012 at the age of 54, was that the most imposing figure in the entertainment industry was actually its most tender soul. Born into poverty on the south side of Chicago, Duncan's journey was paved with relentless, grueling labor. Long before the flashing lights of red carpets, he was digging ditches for a gas company and serving as a real-life bodyguard for A-listers like Will Smith, who famously urged the gentle giant to step out of the shadows and pursue acting seriously. Duncan listened, and the world was forever changed when he landed the defining role of his career. The supernaturally gifted, deeply tragic death row inmate John Coffey in Frank Darabont's 1999 masterpiece, The Green Mile. The performance shattered audiences globally and earned him a fiercely deserved Academy Award nomination. Yet what the cameras didn't capture was his profound off-screen reverence. Co-stars like Tom Hanks were constantly in awe of Duncan's pure, ego-free kindness. He wasn't relying on method acting to play a gentle healer. He was simply drawing from his own deeply rooted, quiet faith. Duncan led private prayer circles on set and approached grueling emotional scenes with a spiritual grace that left veteran actors completely speechless. Furthermore, despite reaching the absolute pinnacle of Hollywood success, he never forgot the streets that raised him. He routinely and secretly funneled his earnings back to his old Chicago neighborhood, paying bills and lifting up those in desperate need without ever seeking a single headline or tax write-off. When his massive heart gave out in the late summer of 2012, the industry didn't just mourn a talented actor. They wept for a fiercely loyal protector. The tragedy of Michael Clark Duncan is that the world instinctively judged a gentle spirit by its towering cover, losing a monumental talent just as he had proven he was capable of carrying the emotional weight of the world. James Avery die Age 68 in 2013. When James Avery's resonant, authoritative voice filled the living rooms of millions during the 1990s, he wasn't just delivering lines on a hit sitcom. He was actively rewriting the cultural narrative of the American family. As Philip Banks, universally beloved as Uncle Phil on The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Avery achieved something historically profound. He presented the world with a black father figure who was highly educated, fiercely successful, emotionally present, and absolutely unshakable. For 6 groundbreaking seasons, he stubbornly refused to let the character devolve into a cheap sitcom punchline or a harmful stereotype. Instead, he infused Uncle Phil with a majestic dignity, profound vulnerability, and a commanding moral compass. What audiences didn't realize was the immense deliberate gravity Avery brought to this seemingly lighthearted role. Before arriving in Bel-Air, he had served in the U.S. Navy during the Vietnam War, worked on the front lines as a social worker, and trained rigorously as a Shakespearean actor. He understood precisely what was at stake every time the director called action. He knew that countless children watching at home, many growing up without a father figure, were subconsciously absorbing his every move, forming their ideas of what a black man could achieve and how a patriarch should love. Behind the scenes, Avery didn't just play a father. He actually became one. He transformed the vibrant, chaotic set of The Fresh Prince into a masterclass in professionalism and humanity. Younger cast members viewed him as a genuine mentor who kept their soaring egos deeply grounded and constantly reminded them of the profound cultural weight their work carried. He offered quiet life advice, demanded excellence, and led by impeccable example. When Avery passed away on New Year's Eve in 2013 at the age of 68, following complications from open-heart surgery, the grief that erupted wasn't the standard Hollywood mourning. It was the raw, visceral pain of losing a true patriarch. Will Smith's public devastation echoed the heartbreak of an entire generation of viewers. James Avery gave us a television father so extraordinarily real, so fiercely loving, and so deeply authentic that his death felt like a devastating personal loss to millions who had never even shaken his hand. Gregory Hines, die Age 57 in 2003, when Gregory Hines took the stage time itself, seemed to alter its rhythm. He possessed a supernatural ability to make his feet converse with the floor, creating an improvisational, jazz-infused language that transcended traditional tap dancing. As a child prodigy who began performing at age 3 alongside his brother, Maurice Hines grew up under the blinding lights of the entertainment industry. He evolved into an unmatched theatrical force, eventually capturing a Tony Award for his mesmerizing performance in Jelly's Last Jam. Audiences were captivated by his smooth charisma and flawless precision. But when he passed away from liver cancer in 2003, at the tragically young age of 57, the world discovered a fiercely guarded secret. The greatest dancer of his generation was hiding a monumental behind-the-scenes crusade that fundamentally altered the trajectory of countless lives. While Hollywood and Broadway celebrated his individual genius, Hines was quietly utilizing his massive influence to shatter the industry's systemic barriers. He understood a painful reality that many of his peers ignored. For Black performers, talent was never the obstacle. Opportunity was. Instead of hoarding his power, he aggressively weaponized his status to force casting doors open for the next generation. He made unsolicited phone calls to powerful directors, personally recommended overlooked dancers by name, and pressured choreographers to hire artists of color who were routinely ignored by the establishment. He did all of this in absolute silence, demanding no public credit, no press releases, and no applause. Furthermore, Hines dedicated his own time and resources to preserving the historical legacy of Black dance, ensuring that forgotten pioneers like the Nicholas brothers received their rightful institutional honors. His premature death from liver cancer was a devastating blow to the arts, robbing the world of a master in his absolute prime. Yet the tragedy of his early departure is profoundly balanced by the magnificent infrastructure he left behind. Gregory Hines didn't just dance across the stage. He meticulously built a runway, stood at the finish line, and invited an entire community to take flight. His hidden legacy proves that the most breathtaking moves he ever made happened completely off camera. Erste Rolle die Age 78 in 1998. For millions of viewers tuning in every week, Florida Evans was the ultimate symbol of maternal warmth, spiritual strength, and unwavering stability on the groundbreaking sitcom Good Times. She was the emotional anchor for a family surviving the harsh realities of the Chicago housing projects. But while audiences at home were roaring with laughter, a brutal, exhausting war was being waged behind the scenes. Esther Rolle, the formidable actress who brought Florida to life, was not simply reading lines from a script. She was locked in a fierce daily battle with powerful network executives to desperately protect the dignity of the Black American family from being reduced to a cheap, profitable punchline. Rolle took her cultural responsibility with lethal seriousness. Good Times made history as the first primetime series to feature a two-parent African-American family in a low-income setting, and she fiercely refused to let it devolve into a modern-day minstrel show. As the series progressed, the writers increasingly shifted the focus to the character of J.J. Evans, leaning heavily into his exaggerated, buffoonish antics and the viral "Dynamite" catchphrase. Rolle was utterly appalled. She watched in horror as a show designed to highlight Black resilience was hijacked for slapstick comedy that she believed actively harmed the psychological development of young Black viewers. Instead of staying quiet and collecting her massive paycheck, she did the unthinkable. She loudly rebelled. Her relentless protests made her deeply unpopular with the producers, culminating in her dramatic decision to walk away from the massive hit entirely after its 4th season. She sacrificed her fame, her income, and her comfort rather than compromise her soul. She only returned when the network finally surrendered to her demands for more respectable storylines. When Esther Rolle passed away in 1998 at the age of 78, the entertainment industry mourned a brilliant actress, but few truly understood the sheer emotional toll of her hidden crusade. Her tragic burden was the crushing weight of constantly having to fight the very people who employed her, just to prove that black humanity deserved to be taken seriously. She was a fierce, uncompromising warrior, brilliantly disguised as a television mom. Jeanette Dubois died, age 74 in 2020. There is a fascinating, almost unbelievable secret hidden in plain sight within the golden era of black television. Millions of viewers welcomed Jeanette Dubois into their living rooms every single week. Fiercely loving her as Willona Woods, the fiercely loyal, quick-witted, and fabulously dressed neighbor on the groundbreaking sitcom Good Times. She was the ultimate comedic confidant, a master of timing, who brought warmth and an undeniable swagger to the Cabrini Green housing projects. But while the world was deeply captivated by her on-screen charisma, almost no one realized that this exact same woman was simultaneously altering the landscape of American music just one studio block over. Dubois was not just a phenomenal actress. She was a secret creative titan who co-wrote and powerfully performed one of the most universally recognized television theme songs in history, Movin' On Up for the Jeffersons. The origin of this legendary anthem is as deeply moving as the song itself. Eager to expand her immense talents beyond acting, Dubois approached legendary producer Norman Lear, who challenged her to craft a theme for a new, highly anticipated spin-off he was developing. Initially struggling to find the right emotional chord, she turned to her roots. A poignant conversation with her mother, who shared a lifelong, passionate dream of working hard enough to finally elevate her family and take care of everyone she loved, unlocked the profound soul of the track. Teaming up with iconic pop songwriter Jeff Barry, she laid down a soaring vocal performance backed by a roaring 35-member gospel choir. When Lear heard the final cut, he was utterly paralyzed by how perfectly it captured the triumphant essence of a show he hadn't even fully explained to her yet. For a decade, her electrifying voice introduced the Jeffersons to the world. Yet her visual identity remained firmly planted in Good Times. She was a one-woman entertainment institution operating covertly across multiple artistic dimensions. When Jeanette Dubois passed away on February 17, 2020 at the age of 74, she left behind an unparalleled dual legacy. She didn't just give us a beloved television character. She gifted the culture a permanent anthem of upward mobility. Today, Movin' On Up is still performed at Super Bowls and heavily sampled by modern hip-hop artists, proving that while Willona Woods made us smile, Jeanette Dubois's true voice will echo beautifully through eternity. Paul Winfield, age 64 in 2004. Paul Winfield possessed an on-screen gravitas that most actors spend an entire lifetime chasing, but never truly capture. He was a masterclass in versatility, effortlessly shifting between gut-wrenching drama, lighthearted comedy, and expansive science fiction, as if he were breathing different types of air. His monumental performance in the 1972 classic Sounder earned him a fiercely deserved Academy Award nomination for Best Actor, cementing his status as a cinematic powerhouse. Whether he was captivating audiences in Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan, or lending his commanding voice to animated series, Winfield projected an absolute undeniable authority. Yet the tragedy of his extraordinary existence lies in the devastating secret he was forced to carry. For the entirety of his luminous professional life, Winfield was denied the most basic human freedom, the right to simply be himself in the daylight. In the fiercely conservative, unforgiving machinery of 1960s, 70s, and 80s, Hollywood being an openly gay black leading man was not merely a career risk, it was a definitive, instantaneous career death sentence. To survive and continue practicing the craft he loved, Winfield had to forcefully compartmentalize his soul. He managed his public persona with exhausting surgical precision, constantly dodging intrusive questions and ensuring his authentic life never accidentally intersected with the rigid homophobic expectations of studio executives. In total secrecy behind locked doors, he built a beautiful, enduring relationship with set designer Charles Gillen Jr. Their profound partnership lasted for over 30 remarkable years, outliving almost every heavily publicized Hollywood marriage of the era. Gillen was his rock, his true equal, but the industry was strictly forbidden from knowing he even existed. Every audition he nailed, every premiere he attended, and every award he was nominated for required Winfield to shrink his true identity and perform a completely different agonizing role off-camera. When he passed away from a massive heart attack on March 7, 2004, at the age of 64, the silence finally broke. Colleagues stepped forward to honor not just his immense artistic brilliance, but the quiet, devastating courage it took to sustain a legendary career, while his true love story was violently erased by prejudice. Paul Winfield gave Hollywood everything he had, brilliantly faking a public life so he could fiercely protect his private one, leaving behind a legacy that is as heartbreaking as it is majestic. Natalie Desselle-Reid, die age 53 in 2020. There is a profound, specific kind of heartbreak that comes from watching the world finally recognize a brilliant artist's worth, only after it is far too late to tell them. Natalie Desselle-Reid was a comedic force of nature, possessing a fearless, naturally effervescent timing and a razor-sharp instinct that simply cannot be taught in any acting class. Throughout the late 1990s and 2000s, she consistently lit up the screen, radiating an infectious joy that made her an instant fan favorite. Her most visible and beloved breakthrough came in the 1997 cult classic Baps, starring opposite Halle Berry. As the gloriously over-the-top character Mickey, a lesser performer would have easily drowned in the absurdity of the material. Instead, Reid didn't just survive the script, she elevated it, anchoring the film's most genuinely hilarious moments with undeniable heart and absolute commitment. Yet Reid's greatest professional blessing was ironically also her heaviest burden. She made comedy look so completely effortless that Hollywood routinely underestimated the immense discipline, intellect, and technical skill behind her performances. In an industry that historically struggled to know what to do with black women who boldly defied easy categorization, she was never truly handed the massive leading platform that her generational talent so clearly warranted. Instead of complaining, she simply continued to deliver scene-stealing performances in hit projects like How to Be a Player and the sitcom Eve. What no one in the public knew was that behind her radiant signature smile, Reid was fighting a grueling, deeply private battle with colon cancer. She chose to endure this agonizing physical and emotional fight entirely away from the glaring, intrusive lights of the media, quietly protecting her peace and her family. When she tragically passed away on December 7th, 2020, at just 53 years old, the entertainment world was completely blindsided. The immediate aftermath of her death was beautiful, yet devastatingly frustrating. Social media violently erupted with massive outpourings of love viral clips and glowing tributes from fans and A-list peers who suddenly demanded the industry acknowledge her brilliance. But this delayed avalanche of praise carries a bittersweet, damning reality. Natalie Desselle-Reid's legacy serves as a haunting reminder to the entertainment machine waiting until a brilliant star has fallen. To finally give them their flowers is not a tribute, it is an apology. Whitman Mayo died, age 70, in 2001. In the 1970s, tens of millions of Americans tuned in every single week to laugh at the delightfully confused, gap-toothed antics of Grady Wilson on the smash hit sitcom Sanford and Son. Grady was the ultimate comic relief, a lovable, wandering neighborhood fixture who seemed to exist purely for an easy punchline. But the man wearing the scraggly beard and delivering those legendary side-splitting laughs was secretly living a profound, double life that absolutely shattered every single stereotype his character portrayed. Whitman Mayo was not an uneducated, aimless drifter. He was a fiercely intellectual scholar, armed with a master's degree, and while America was laughing at him, he was dedicating his life to academia as a highly respected university professor. While his television show was breaking national ratings records, regularly drawing in over 20 million viewers an episode, Mayo was quietly walking the prestigious halls of Clark Atlanta University. There, he rigorously taught advanced drama and television production to a new generation of eager black students. He kept his massive celebrity and his academic career deliberately and strictly isolated. Many of his students had absolutely no idea that their demanding, intensely serious professor was simultaneously starring in one of the most popular comedies in the country. In fact, Mayo initially wanted to reject the iconic role of Grady entirely. He possessed a profound, legitimate fear that playing a bumbling slapstick character on a major network would permanently destroy his hard-earned credibility as a serious stage performer and a rigorous academic. He ultimately accepted the lucrative part not for the fleeting fame or the money, but for the invaluable real-world industry knowledge it would directly provide his classroom. He brilliantly used his television success as a Trojan horse, extracting the closely guarded secrets of Hollywood casting, script writing, and production, and personally handing that blueprint directly to his young, aspiring students. When Whitman Mayo passed away on May 22, 2001, at the age of 70, the mainstream media simply reported the predictable loss of a beloved sitcom sidekick. However, the true, deeply felt tragedy of his passing echoed through the theaters and classrooms of the black academic community. His most magnificent legacy was never captured on NBC's cameras. It was the countless successful careers of the marginalized students he tirelessly mentored. Whitman Mayo sacrificed his own serious dramatic image so that the next generation of black artists could learn exactly how to conquer an industry that was never designed for them to win. These extraordinary artists didn't just play heroes on screen. They lived as unsung warriors in reality. They were trapped in a brutal industry machine that happily profited from their immense talent while completely ignoring their fragile humanity. From sacrificing lucrative paychecks to protect cultural dignity, to funding entire communities until their own bank accounts ran dry. Their hidden lives force us to reevaluate every frame of film we ever watched. But their tragic sacrifices leave us with a haunting, uncomfortable question. Did the Hollywood system systematically fail these legendary icons? Or did we, the audience, fail them by demanding endless entertainment without ever checking on the human beings behind the characters? Who is truly to blame? Drop your unfiltered thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to Black Hollywood Uncut to keep these raw, untold stories alive.